Hey everyone, I'm Astrid Carlson. I've been modeling for almost a decade now, since I'm making this video, YouTube. Anyway, I've gotten a lot of questions on how to get into modeling, and I've been trying to figure out a really good way to make a video on this. I think I'm going to end up making a series of a few videos, but this one I really wanted to start in with just like an overall summary of how one might get into modeling. I've done freelance modeling, so I'm not going to be the best advice for if you want to go into something like an agency modeling. There's a lot of different varieties and genres of modeling that you can do and that you can get into, even with like agency versus freelance. It kind of spreads itself out. So you're going to find that your own path is going to be very different from most other people, unless there's someone in particular out there who you just want to do exactly what they're doing. But I will say that a lot of the times, even if you're seeing what other people are bringing out online or what they're doing, you might not know exactly what all is going into their modeling, what their job is, and what they're kind of doing behind the scenes, because that's for sure a huge part of this. Is a lot of it will be marketing, and will be marketing a certain look, a certain brand style, certain lifestyle is what a lot of people are really going for. So you don't know what's always going on behind the scenes. That part just really honestly isn't that interesting to talk about, and most models will want to show their work more than they'll want to show how they got to that work. Just partially because it's not as interesting, but also I wouldn't really necessarily want to talk about it more than I want people to see like what I'm doing and get excited about that. But so here's a little bit from behind the scenes, I guess. I wouldn't take everything I say as a like perfect guide for getting into modeling. You'll find that your own experiences will kind of be different. This changes a lot because of like the region that you'll live in, or what your look is going to be. Also, just with the time, social media changing, etc., things will become more popular in one way and less popular in another way. So there's like an ebb and flow of things that work as they go. Once you kind of get the hang of things, you'll have the hang of things, but that can be really tricky without like really having someone hands-on guiding you the whole time and making sure that you're getting what you want. There's going to be a lot of mistakes, a lot of errors, and you're going to be doing a lot of your own I guess like trials and errors, and figuring out not only like what works for you, but what you're going to end up wanting and what will end up making you happy. You might even find that this isn't exactly what you thought it was and what you really want to be doing, because even though there is like some modeling involved, turning modeling into a career can be very different. So that's something to play with and understand as you're going in, that you might end up finding yourself more just enjoying the process of modeling versus wanting to make it an entire career. Or maybe you're one of those people who just really gets excited and really into the career aspect of it. When I started out, I did start out as a hobby. I didn't really know about this as a career. Like, I thought modeling was just agency work, and I wasn't getting into that because at the time I was definitely pretty much just didn't have a very conventional look at all. And there's just a lot that can be said about agency and how tricky it can kind of be to go down that route. What it'll kind of mean. I still wouldn't say that I'm the best person to talk about it, but I can make a video on that as well, at least what I know and my own experience with when I was looking into that. But I mostly just kind of got into this spontaneously by accident. I enjoyed like modeling for some friends and then their friends, and then I just kind of got a little more interwoven into this community without really understanding the career aspects of it. I did have some people trying to guide me, but as much as their guidance did give me a lot of help and advice in some ways, it also really didn't work in other ways, because I was different from what like their guidance was giving me. So like I wanted to go in a completely different direction from what the kind of guidance that I heard. A lot of the guidance I heard at the beginning is that you can only really make money and you should really only be doing this if like you're going to pretty much just doing erotic pornography kind of work, which I would definitely say there is a ton of when it comes to freelance modeling. there's very few freelance models that don't do erotic or pornography. So you can kind of struggle with a lot of those aspects as you're getting into it. This can be the same pretty much in a lot of different modeling worlds. You'll find that the sex work industry and the modeling industry really bump heads quite a bit, if not always within each other's gray areas. Can be a lot of complications as far as like how to define the line between the two, which you'll kind of find as you're getting into this. So it's one thing that I really want to bring up is to step gently and see where you're going, but also not to be too judgmental as you're going, because you'll find that this industry is not always what you expect. Let's see. So yeah, that's real big reason why I want you to make sure that you know that my word is not law. It is not like exactly how you get into modeling. There's going to be a lot of different ways to get into it, and just because something worked for me doesn't mean it will for you. The guidance that I got didn't always work very well, and I really didn't understand the career aspect of it, and I didn't think I wanted to. I also didn't think I could ever be turning modeling into a career, so how I got into it and how I started turning it into a career, I guess is a little lost on me as well. I've still been kind of trying to figure that out. I wouldn't recommend how I got into modeling. I mean, rather that I started off as a hobby. I did it all the time just for fun. I did it in between classes because I was at school. And somehow through that, I picked up a reputation and I was able to book jobs from time to time. And it really wasn't until I started traveling I was really able to start making money. I live in Georgia and there's just not a lot of work down here. It is growing, so maybe things will change. You'll find with modeling too, cities will like be really good one year and really bad the next year. Things are just constantly changing as far as that's going. I guess a lot of modeling right now either can come from word of mouth, which can be a little difficult to get jobs, but it is really useful and really handy because you're going to be trying to build up a reputation, which is something I think I unexpectedly was able to do when I chose to do modeling as a hobby. I built up a reputation and people got to know who I was, my work ethic, my professionalism, or just how I like worked in general. And that through that word of mouth, I had more people booking me, but also I would definitely say I utilized social media a lot. During that time, I mostly just used Facebook. I think Instagram was popular, but I wasn't cool enough to get that at the time. So I really only used Facebook, and that like helped me a lot through networking, like meeting people, having people see who I am. So you'll want a combination of definitely going out there and being like friendly and extroverted a little bit, as well as like being online and social media and showing that as well. Let's see, various kinds of weird advice that I got, and I'll go over why like this worked and why this didn't, was when I first started, like I never heard anyone saying to like go ahead and just start charging, although I say this because now I see people doing that a lot. They'll do 1 to 3 shoots and then they'll just start charging money for their work. As a model, I don't really have an opinion either way. If you can start charging, good for you. If you're not ready or you're not feeling ready, you can start charging small amounts, or you can just decide to keep going. I really think that you have to choose for yourself what you want to do here. I do recommend like checking out other models and seeing what they charge, how much they're charging. It is totally okay to reach out to other models and say, hey, new model, I'm just getting into this. I'm looking into maybe like charging, and I would love to know what your rates are now and what you charged when you first began, just to get yourself like some familiarity with what like you might want to try and what you might want to try doing. Things do change still too with like inflation and rates. Some people will just go ahead and charge like full dollar for their modeling, even if they're new. And then some people will do more of like this staggered rate where they start charging just a little bit, and then like that money or that charge ends up increasing. It'll depend on you, what you end up feeling like doing. There's also this aspect called trading, where you will work with various photographers or artists and trade for content. So you will model for them in the hopes that they will give you some sort of content, photos, etc., that you can use to establish yourself as a portfolio, to show off, to get like more work. This also helps too, because if they know you, they can recommend you. You kind of build up this like list of references. I say hope because you can't always guarantee that you will actually get photos back, even though that is the point of a trade shoot. So I do highly recommend that you go ahead and do some behind the scenes kind of work, videos, selfies, just that you can use as like some sort of advertisement. So you get something from the shoot. You can discuss with the photographer, artist, or whoever beforehand about photos, how many photos you'll get, like what kind of payment you'll receive, etc., like before the shoot. But you can't always guarantee that you're still going to get anything that's been said to you. You can sign a contract and go to court over it, but more than likely everything's kind of done through Messenger, through email. Some people want to do phone call. I highly recommend still having everything written down so everything's agreed upon. It kind of feels like I'm rambling, but really I'm trying to get through a lot of material here in a short amount of time. This is why I feel like I'm going to need to make a series about this. But like I said, this will be like an overall generalized idea of maybe how to like get into modeling a little bit. So I did like this aspect of getting to trade because I could build up a portfolio really fast. I wouldn't say like, I guess I would say that like that portfolio grows and gets better and bigger as you're going, and you can kind of change out. I really liked too that it gave me a little bit more of experience in the industry without having a lot of pressure on me. So like if I could make it to a shoot because I had a test, like an unexpected test, not like a planned test, but I had something going on that I couldn't make a shoot, or it couldn't be my priority, or I kind of felt like if I got to a shoot situation and ended up not being very good, either like really inappropriate or really creepy, then I could just go ahead and leave without feeling too bad. You really kind of get the hang of how to be professional, how to talk to people, how to schedule things, and in a way that's going to be different from any other job that you have done, because you're in complete control of your schedule and need to be responsible. There's also a lot of logistics. You're usually like traveling to brand new locations that you don't know what the traffic's going to be like. You don't know what your car situation is going to be like. Things just kind of change a lot. So I did really like that I got that experience over time. I really don't know if I would have been ready to go right into modeling full time, especially with where I was living in Georgia. While I was in college, I definitely couldn't travel quite the way that I can now that I've graduated. And this will be different if you live in various kinds of cities. Some cities will have more work or more photographers or more artists, whatever kind of work you're looking for. I got started doing figure modeling at the school that I was at. I wouldn't say that that's what led me to then modeling and photography. They kind of came up in different opportunities and different ways in my life. But I was able to use some of the skills that I used for one with the other and vice versa. Definitely learned a lot from doing both, and both are very different career paths, but very possible. Some people are able to make both happen, but it can be a little bit harder because they demand different kinds of time and logistical responsibilities. Anyway, let's see. I was told pretty much to stop shooting trade, and I didn't for a long time. I do realize the benefits of if you refuse to shoot trade anymore, you'll be more likely to book more work. And this is because everyone in the community kind of talks like not everyone, but for the most part, everyone kind of knows what's going on and is talking to each other and is listening to what's happening. So if you shoot a lot of trade, then it's going to be harder to get booked by people who expect you to trade with them as well. If you decide to charge someone less, like they could talk to someone else about how you've done that. It can just cause a lot of drama and dynamics. If you're a strong enough person to do it, great. But just so you know, there's a lot of personalities and you can't always do that. We'll say one of the side effects of choosing not to shoot trade at all anymore can be that it can really be difficult sometimes to spread out into new networks. Just because sometimes you're shooting trade, you're getting to know like these brand new people and their friends. So if they never decide to hire you or post photos or talk about you, then there's a chance that you'll never get to know their contacts or network. There's also a good reason not to shoot trade with them, because if someone sees or their friends see that you shoot trade with them, there's a chance that you'll never be hired by any of their friends too. So that can be a double-edged sword. Just something to really consider if you're looking into doing this, if you're looking into getting hired more often, rather. Another like consequence of not really shooting trade is I feel like eventually your portfolio kind of like bottoms out or like plateaus, because you like trade is usually a great way to practice and get better photos for your portfolio, to just kind of like enhance things and work with people who you know can get you better images. I kind of decided not to really shoot trade very much anymore because I really liked a lot of the photographers that I was working with anyway. But also I kind of got to a point where like you can shoot trade with people, but if they're not going to give you back images or the photos you get back don't necessarily feel like they represent the rest of their portfolio, then it doesn't really matter. And eventually that like time crunch of wasting time on things like that didn't feel as useful. Also, as you're shooting trade, because you're the model, you do not own the photos, you do not have very many rights to these photos. You have some rights, and this will depend on the state or the country that you're working in. Also, it'll depend very much on what photographer you're working with and what they're willing to let you do with the photos. Always have a ton of clarity on that. I feel like it's never an issue to ask a few million times and have it in writing about what your rights are with the photos and photographs that you guys take together. But one of the reasons not to shoot trade as a model, and this is why I think a lot of models do go from like 1 or 2 trade shoots to getting paid all the time, is the lack of rights that you will really have over the photos, what happens to the photos, and what you can do with the photos. So that's just something to really know and understand. Let's see, I was also, so these are 2 things that I think you just might want to contemplate. I'm not going to spend too much time on them, but you really want to think about what your look is saying in your portfolio. Some people are just getting into this because they just like the way they look in photos. They just want to be here. They just want to make like photography using themselves as models, or they just like modeling in general. And they're not quite as concerned over the audience. But if you are trying to get hired, or you're trying to create a very specific look or get into a very specific genre, you might have to consider how your look will fit into that genre or fit into that audience. I ended up like, I never really had tattoos, so that kind of worked in my favor. I was an indecisive person, couldn't come up with tattoos. But when I first started modeling, I had blue hair, and that really kept me from being able to do a lot of the art modeling, because people really want like this very natural, neutral look. You'll find that for a lot of things, from commercial to art to etc. Having a very like natural-ish kind of look will help you spread into a variety of different genres and looks. So like a lot of people can use you for any kind of look that they possibly want. I can look a little bit more alternative just by wearing more makeup and a different outfit, and then I can look very clean by like wearing very little makeup and etc. Versus if you already have tattoos, it can be a little harder to like cover them up for potential shoots, or even convince someone that you can fit into the look. And this is like not me telling you don't go and get that tattoo, don't go dye your hair pink, etc., etc. Like, you should do you, what makes you happy. Just be aware that you are working within like a group scenario. You're working within a partnership. And if your partner doesn't like your look or your audience doesn't really like your look, then they might not work with you. That's just something to consider. As far as genres do go, I also really wanted this plain look so I could spread into multiple genres. But I've always been told, and I definitely find this to be fairly true, that like you'll do better and you'll get farther in modeling if you choose a genre. And it doesn't mean that you won't be like booked to model different kinds of looks. But usually like people really want to associate you with one look. It really gets like a huge audience for that kind of look. I don't really know how to describe it, but pretty much you're seen as like the master of a certain genre or a certain look if you like stick to one, versus if you have like a whole spread out variety. Like I've kind of heard before that people didn't know what to expect when they were hiring me, like who would show up. And I'm like, well, I'm the model. I'm not every single photo that you've seen of me on the internet, but people do have a weird expectation from you when they see you on the internet. So you really want to be careful with your portfolio and your internet presence. You want quality images in your portfolio. You don't have to start with super quality photos in your portfolio. Like it can kind of help for sure. It'll like go ahead and jump you into like that next level of modeling potentially. But like you can start off small and grow and get bigger, because part of it is people are looking for your posing and your abilities. And then over time, as you've become more experienced, people are also going to be looking for your taste and what kind of photographers or photography, and I don't want to just make this about photography, but art might be most interesting to you. And so people who see something that they can identify with or that's familiar to them in your portfolio are more likely to hire you than someone who sees that you've only done like a lot of gothic modeling and they're looking for someone for like a princess wear. Like, I'm not saying that's how it always happens. I'm just saying that a lot of people pretty much use your portfolio as their catalog and choose how they want to hire you based off of that. And when you have a very consistent look, they're very, they feel like that's a lot more reliable than someone who, like me, might have a ton of different looks in my portfolio. So there's like drawbacks to both as you're like going through. Of course, if you're just beginning, you might just want to try a bunch of things and then see what it is that you gravitate to or what you like, where your limitations are. Of course, always, always, always stick to your limitations. Know at least a pretty good route for limitations when you're doing photo shoots or art of any kind. Limitations are things like how nude are you willing to be and what are you willing to show in the art as far as body parts, looks, quality. Limitations can kind of mean a lot of things, but for the most part in the modeling world, or at least freelance modeling, limitations are based off of how nude are you willing to get, how sexual are you willing to look, and what body parts are you willing to have visible. So that might be something that you want to consider, or at least be ready to say no to in the situation. Of course, I would also say too that the best way to be prepared for a dangerous situation is to just have a backup plan, have a way to get out of a situation, have someone who knows where you are and where you're coming from or where you're going. Really, I should make a whole entire video on red flags, and I will. Things to watch out for and things that can be possibly dangerous. I think if I started in this video, it would just take way too long. So let's see. I think another thing I just wanted to mention in this video before I go is like, what would I do and what would I do differently as far as modeling? And I won't go completely into it. That will be another video, I promise. But I would say that definitely to have a little bit more belief in myself, have a little more direction and idea of what I want to do. I really didn't when I started modeling, and I didn't care at all, to be fair. I didn't expect this to go anywhere. I didn't care necessarily what the photos ended up doing. I liked making them. I liked being a part of them. I liked meeting new people. I didn't really think about like the long-term, long haul, or where I wanted to go, or who I wanted to be, or like what kind of modeling I wanted to do. I was just kind of excited and having fun doing it. But if like you kind of want this to be more of like your artistic expression, meeting certain kinds of people, or like turning this into a career, you really want to come up with an idea of what you're looking for, how you want to look, and how you want to be represented. And look for photographers who are doing that and reach out to them. Cold call, cold call, cold call. So message everyone, message lots of people, be ready for rejection, be ready to be asked to pay them. Just like reach out to people constantly and shoot with as many people as you can. That was something I think I did do right, was like I shot with a lot of people and I was very open and I modeled a ton, and that gave me a lot of experience and a lot of understanding really fast. As far as the industry, I just wasn't particularly picky. Let's see, you might want to hire a photographer, but this also kind of goes back to our trade discussion that like if you hire a photographer to build up your portfolio, other photographers might want and expect you to hire them because people do talk. But it could also be, and this has always been my biggest qualm with potentially hiring a photographer, is that sometimes if you hire a photographer, they'll teach you a little bit about modeling, and that's great. But I also find that if you hire a photographer, they're going to take the best angles of you and make you look the best that you can. And that's not always going to happen when you're modeling either as a hobby, or especially when you're getting hired to model. You need to be able to work with the photographer and their limitations rather than the photographer knowing how to work with you and your like novice limitations. That's not to say don't hire a photographer, just be really choosy. Understand that like you do not just want like those kinds of photographers in your portfolio, and that might not always be the best learning experience, though you might learn some things through it, but you'll learn a lot more through trading for sure. Let's see. I think for the most part, like some of the things I should have done were also despite just like not anticipating that I was going to get into modeling, but I really needed to network more and cold call more, be less nervous about reaching out to people. I kind of waited most of the time for people to reach out to me about working. I think that really like made my career and even me hobby modeling move really, really slowly. But I like didn't realize you kind of have to do the like annoying phone cable person thing where you just message people all the time asking if they want to work together, either hiring you or trading, depending on where you are in your career. That is the best way to improve and to get somewhere and to try new things and to make this into a job. Kind of really have some goal photographers out there. Feel free to, or like feel ready to like change them up, and do not work with anyone who is creepy, no matter how good their work is. It's just all around bad. It is not worth it. There are tons of talented people out there. You do not have to work with someone creepy, no matter how famous they are, no matter how good they make you look. The problem is too with creepy people is not only will they kill your love for this and make you possibly be in dangerous situations, but if other creepy people know that you're willing to work with creepy people, they're going to pressure you to work with them as well, and you're going to attract more creepiness. People see people who are willing to be taken advantage of or be victims, and they strike and look for those people to take advantage of. Last tips. Things that I did that I really liked as well was I started taking small business association classes. It's free online. I think it's just sba.org. And they'll talk about things such as like reaching out to audiences, what you might need to do for marketing, starting budgets, starting a company and organizations, depending on the state or country. You might have a different like experience as far as forming an LLC or what you'll need to do if you do want to make this a valid career and valid job. Let's see, some other stuff that I didn't necessarily do but probably should have was really copying more people that I see out there. Like, do not feel bad for copying someone's pose, for copying someone's image idea, etc. Especially if you give them credit later, they'll usually like feel kind of flattered. But when you're starting out, this is the best way to practice, is just to take an idea that you like and see if you can recreate it and like it on yourself as well. And this doesn't even go just for copying photos and poses, but like look for a portfolio that you really like, or someone's bio, someone's profile, someone's website. See what they're doing. What do you like about it, or how do you like where they're going, and what can you do to just copy it over and maybe add a little personalization yourself. And as you're going and as you get better and more experienced, this will become more and more personalized. But it's good to just go over and see what other people are doing. Don't think of it as competition, think of it as learning from other people around you. And they do this a lot still by looking at either the other models and what they're doing, looking at what photographers are looking for in models. And then I do a lot of research on YouTube and etc. on social media algorithms. You won't find a lot on freelance modeling, but you'll find things adjacent, such as photography, and knowing like what photographers are looking for, or other artists, depending on what you're doing, is a really great way of getting to know your audience and clientele and maybe what you can bring to the table. And another great thing is to connect with other models. Be nice. Sometimes it's just commenting on other models, sometimes messaging them, sometimes meeting them in real life. I've had people ask if we can go out for coffee or something like that when I'm in various cities. And if I have time, I generally try to do that, because I think it's nice to get to know other people in the community. It's nice to have like this support system, and generally models who network and connect and are good to each other, like, stay in business longer. It's good to have a good support system in this community to back each other up, to support each other. And like, it can also be nice too, because if I can't do a job, then I can like let them know about another model in town that can do a job, and vice versa. We scratch each other's backs, but also it's a great way to like look for references and like know new artists in a various city that we might be going to, like new jobs, or to know who to stay away from because one of our friends may have already had a really bad experience. So this is my little short ramble. Sorry, it's 30 minutes anyway, but hopefully it gives you a pretty good basic idea of what freelance modeling is. It's probably still fairly confusing, because I know that like before I really got into it, and maybe not even until a few years ago, maybe not even now, did I understand anything that was happening, anything that was going on, or why any of this works the way that it does. Just does. You kind of just have to dip your toes in, try it out, see what's happening, and tread fairly carefully. Feel free to reach out to people. Yeah, just do what makes you happy and see where that goes. Don't like go too fast in. Don't spend a lot of money just starting this out. Like, try little things here and there, see how that feels, see how that goes, and wait and subscribe in order to see my next video. Get more advice.